Today we're talking about which side of the line you should bevel, and more importantly, why. That's coming up. Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Reach. This is Weaver Leather Supply. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that you've asked for multiple times, and that is, which side of the line do I bevel? How do I know which side of the line to bevel? Today we're going to talk about that, and we're going to throw in the why of which side of the line should you bevel. Now, whether you're a beginner and you're starting out on the very basic floral tooling that teaches the basics, or maybe you aspire to something more complicated like Dreams of Dragonfire or the Eagle or something like that, no matter what end of the spectrum that you're on, it's really important that you understand the why of which side of the line that you should bevel. And today I'm going to give you a couple of questions that you can ask on each individual project that will answer that question for you, and you will never have a problem deciding which side of the line should I bevel. Today we're going to be trying out a brand new format, and that is we're going to alternate between the project, me, and my computer. We're going to be using my tablet. This is the tablet that I use to draw out new sketches, new patterns, work out color palettes, all that kind of stuff. Today we're going to be using it so that I can get very detailed on what area that I'm talking about that you should be beveling on this particular project. So let's go ahead and jump over to that. So what we have here, I kind of think of him as the grumpy gnome. He prefers the spring, but you know, he's stuck in wintertime right now and he's not all that happy about it. And so this is what we're going to be carving today. Great little practice piece. So let's jump into this. So while I'm cutting in the project, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how you decide where to start. How do you decide what to bevel first? And the question you have to ask yourself is, what's closest to you, what's furthest away? Foreground versus background. Well, in this particular scenario, as we look at Grumpy Gnome, as we've come to call him, his nose is going to be the closest thing to us. So that's a great place to start. So I'm going to start right up in here, right around the top of his nose, and I'm going to bring that all the way around, and that's going to stop right about here. Now that's obviously not where that line ends. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start on the outside of this line. I'm going to come up through here, and then I'm going to taper these two together. So you can see right there where the red and the purple overlap. That's my transition zone. I want to have them fade from one to the other. So we're going to go from one side of the line to the other as this line moves around his nose and down into his mustache. The second most prominent feature is probably going to be his mustache. That's what's going to be next in the foreground versus background. So let's go ahead and jump in there. I'm going to get rid of this circle real quick. So you can start wherever you want to. I started right in here. I brought it down this way, up there, and then you bring it around. Then it's just a matter of working here. After I get those in, I spin it, and I'm going to work this one and this one. Then we can come over here and do the same thing. It doesn't matter which end you start on. There, 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 there. Now that we've got the mustache done, we can go ahead and take care of the beard. You could make the argument that, you know, the beard or the hat is probably the next in the foreground, but we're already working on the hair. Let's go ahead and knock out the beard. I'm gonna start right over here, bring it down this way. Just like that. Then I'll come back and I'll get these little tucked pieces. This area right in here, I'm gonna save that for when I do the shoe. So we're not gonna bevel that yet. After we get one side done, we can jump back over and we're gonna start here. Oh, let's get rid of that. Keep our color straight. So start here, then here, here, and here. Now, one of the areas, just so we're on the same page, this area right in here, that's part of his sleeve, so we're not gonna work on that yet. We're only gonna do the areas that are in purple right there. Do me a favor, let me know in the comments if you like this new format where we incorporate the tablet and we take a really close look at where you should be working and how. Maybe it's overkill, I don't know. You let me know what you think. Tell me in the comments. Now, as we look at the picture here, now we've got to ask ourselves again, what's next in line with the foreground versus background? And I really think that's probably going to be this area through here, the fuzz on his hat. You could make the argument that it's the shoe down here, or maybe even the glove over here. Any of those would be fine. I decided to go ahead with the fur next, so let's go ahead and take care of that. I'll get rid of these red marks. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and we're gonna work from the center out, and we wanna taper those lines. The actual swivel cuts don't connect, but we can use our bevel to connect them, and it will give us more the illusion, kind of a soft line in there. That gives us a little bit more subtlety and more depth in our project. So from here, we kind of get into the area where everything tends to drift into the mid and background. You could technically make the argument that the stick and the glove are more prominent than the rest of it, but I personally really like to knock out the big bevel areas as quickly as possible. So from here, I decided to go ahead and bevel his hat and all the way around the outside. So the next most prominent thing is going to be the walking stick and the glove. So let's go ahead and knock out the walking stick, and we're definitely going to be on the outside of the line all the way around. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Let's start here and just work our way down and do that all the way around the stick. Now, my camera decided to go out of focus while I was tooling the stick, so I'm not gonna make you suffer through that, but just know that I stayed on the outside of the stick to push it more towards the front. So when I do my beveling, I think of it in multiple stages. The first would be what I call lining and defining, and that's where I'm going in, I'm creating a crisp edge and really defining the edges. The second step would be shading, and I'm wanting to add shadows into any area where they would naturally occur. And the third one would be the lifting, really enhancing and pulling it off the page. We're not going to get into that today. We're going to talk about lining, defining, and shadows, and that's next. So to do the shading, I'm going to be using a traditional beveler. For the first stage, lining and defining, we used a steep edge beveler. That gave us a really crisp line. For the second step, we're going to be using a traditional beveler. Now, why wouldn't I simply use the traditional beveler to do both? In my experience, the traditional bevel does not give you the depth and the crispness on that line. It doesn't define it as well as the steep edge bevel does. So for me, it's worth it to go in there, do the lining and defining with the steep edge beveler. To do the shadows, I come back in with a traditional bevel. It doesn't take nearly as long as the first step does. And that way we get the best of both worlds. We get the crisp, well-defined edges, and we get the shadows. To do that, we really have to ask ourselves, where does the shadow naturally want to fall? So with Grumpy here, it's gonna start in this area. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that better. Maybe not quite that much. Move him up. We're gonna start right in here. So this mustache would naturally put a shadow on that area behind him. Under his mustache naturally would have some shadowing. So we're gonna come in here, we're gonna put it right through there. And note that I did not, let's switch it, I did not put any shadows right here. And we're not gonna put any here either. So just the parts where the shadow would naturally fall on him. A few more areas where it would naturally want to fall. It's gonna come down his beard right here. Let's see if I can get that to zoom in a little bit. It's gonna come in right here. Actually, it's gonna be right here, down through there, here. You're gonna get some here on this side of the line. You're gonna get it here, here, there, and there. Really quick, you know, I gotta ask, if you're enjoying the video, if you're finding it helpful, do me a favor, click the like button. Tells me, tells YouTube, tells Weaver that we're on the right track, and it helps the video spread to other people. Since this video was primarily about which side of the line to bevel and why and how to create those shadows, I'm gonna move through the rest of the project a little faster. Otherwise, this video literally would have been an hour long, and obviously that won't work. So we're gonna move through the rest of it a little faster. I'll still kind of talk you through what we're doing on screen, but it's not gonna be quite as detailed. Now, what about the design on his hat? The stripes on his hat are neither in front or behind the rest of the design on the hat. They're literally on the same plane. But we still really need to define them, otherwise they're gonna have no definition. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a very subtle shadow around the stripe. Now this is not meant to indicate depth. It's more to indicate the seam where the two parts of the hat would be sewn together. And what we want is a shadow on the outside of the stripe, very, very subtle here. In next week's video, we're gonna do a pretty deep dive into how to create human hair. More importantly, we're gonna talk about the why behind those techniques, and we're gonna use his beard to do that. But for now, here's a sneak peek on how it's done. Now let's go ahead and start working on the design in the hat. And there's a few different ways we could do that. We could use a swivel knife to cut it in. We could just go and bevel it in with a steep edge bevel. Or we can do what I'm gonna do today, and that's use my stylus to really kind of etch it in. So it's really simple to do this. All I'm gonna do is take my stylus and run it over the pattern. As I go, I'm gonna gradually get harder and harder with the pressure, which is gonna push the pattern in deeper and deeper. But because I'm using a stylus, it's gonna give us very, very rounded edges, not crisp at all, but it's still gonna leave the pattern in the leather. And one of the keys to making this work is don't press really hard from the beginning. You want to build up that depth with multiple passes. It doesn't do you any good whatsoever to press really hard from the start. All it's going to do is tire out your hand. So now that all the little swirlies are done, let's go ahead and do the crosshatch pattern. And these are a lot thinner, so I'm going to switch over to my modeling spoon. I'm just going to use the edge and kind of scribe them in just like if I was using a pencil. The next step is going to be to add texture, and we're going to be adding texture to the fur on the cap, that little puff ball on the end of his hat, and the glove. And we're going to be adding kind of a mottled texture. This is a good way to add indistinct texture to areas that really, you know, they're not hair, they're not, you know, fabric. They need some kind of texture. This is a great way to do it. So we're just going to work the texture in evenly over the fur, the ball, and the glove. Just lightly work it in. You don't have to go too heavy with it. So next we're gonna get a little creative. We're gonna be adding texture into the robe. And to do this, you can use any fabric that has a heavy texture to it, but I personally like using burlap because it's a very obvious texture and it's very easy to incorporate into the project. And to do this, I just cut a little piece off, I secure it on the end of a flat matting tool, and slowly just work it in across the surface of the robe. We are down to the very last step, and that's going to be adding texture to the walking stick. Because we're working in such a narrow area, I decided to go ahead and just use the edge of my modeling spoon again, just like we did with the crosshatch pattern on his hat. This time we just want to put in a random pattern that kind of simulates wood grain. A few final touches, and we're done. That's going to be it for this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought. I will see you in the next video. And in the meantime, go make something amazing.